visitors, are the aliens, have they come to us? And all the evidence is yes.
So what is it that you want to see the Obama administration release? What is it specifically? What do you think is there that we need to see?
Well, the other nations, and this has been a global phenomenon, other nations and just in recent history, the Belgian nation, the French, the Brazilians, the Mexicans, the Argentines, all of their files have been opened up. And there's no reason in the world why the U.S. files, the leading nation in the world in this period, should have been reticent in opening ours too, except special interest groups.
So Edgar, but let me ask you, I mean, for all the stories that have leaked over all the years, I mean, and there's always somebody somewhere that's going to leak something, and if there was really something there, don't you think by now somebody would have said something?
Well, it has. People have been saying it all along. But for example, just the explanation to the Roswell incident has changed every few years, and a new story comes out. If it were really that simple, if it weren't what it really was, you wouldn't need all of these various stories coming out. And so the attempt to cover this up and to disguise the issue and create misinformation and disinformation is very well reported. And the documentation from very fine researchers like Dr. Robert Wood and his son Ryan, who've investigated all of the early documents, all point to the same story. Hey, we're not alone here. We've been visited.
There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato-shaped object that goes around Mars once in 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're going to say, who put that there? Who put that there? Well, the universe put it there. If you choose, God put it there. There's a monolith.
Okay, so what we have here with certain fallen angels is that they have the ability to transform, and a lot of that was exploited in the Transformer series movies and in the Transformer cartoons. And so what they did was they based that off of something that was real. And so what we have with fallen angels is not what people think. It's not the touched by an angel version with these guys. These beings are spiritual beings with incredible powers, and one of those powers entails that as we would create objects and as we would form these objects through resources and through the materials and the powers that we have, their powers is that they can transform themselves into objects. And so we're talking objects that look like space-age vehicles and planes. We're talking about objects that basically look like other entities. They can transform into a creature. They could transform into a ship. They can transform to even look like the implements that we have. They can literally transform themselves to disguise themselves as a car, as a plane, and as a lot of different type of objects. There's really nothing they can really do in terms of transforming. We do know that when it comes to the fallen angels, they don't have as much power as they normally would in terms of their transforming abilities, but they do have them at a very good length. So they're not totally depowered. And so a lot of them like to transform into ships. A lot of them like to transform into certain objects. A lot of them like to transform into basically UFOs, basically planes, basically other looking creatures. And sometimes it gets sporadic. You know, sometimes they kind of, you know, from a lot of the transforming and using the powers that they use in our dimension, and it kind of weighs heavy on them. You know, they can't always maintain it. They can't always maintain the form or the shapes that they take, and sometimes they go a little crazy in the atmosphere. And then sometimes that's caught on camera, where they're just like morphing into like a UFO and then a dragon and then other types of forms of spiritual reptilian looking you know, helixes, if you will, you know, combinations of different forms. For instance, you'll see some transforming from a UFO into a dragon-looking creature and then back again, and then it disappears and then comes back again. And when it's doing that, what's happening at that moment is that it's freaking out because it can't maintain its form in our dimension, and they don't want to go back to the other dimension they just came from. So they try to struggle with it. And sometimes when they come into our dimension, they're pretty set in their form or their shape, and they're able to maintain it for probably long periods of time before they end up dissipating, and then another group comes in. And so there is a weakness to them, but we don't have the weapons to really combat them, to tell you the truth. I mean, fighting them is like throwing sticks at them. It's not going to work. You know, you can throw a nuclear warhead at them, and that's not going to work. You can shoot bullets at them, and that's not going to work. When it comes to the full spiritual beings, the full fallen spiritual beings, I'm not talking about their Nephilim children, who are another story, because they can morph too, but not as well as the fallen angels. The fallen angels, to understand them, they're usually balls of light, and then they have demons that can also appear that way. So it's tricky identifying them, but one thing that you can do is, when you pay enough attention to them, or if you spent enough time observing them, you start to notice how the demon lights are not as transformable as the fallen angels. Fallen angels are, you know, they can basically transform within seconds and disappear within seconds, and the demons, or the spiritual demons, they seem to maintain a certain form, and then they're known to just basically dissipate a lot quicker. And so that's probably the only way you can tell on that end, you know, when it comes to these beings. You know, aliens are two types. You know, aliens, is what people will know them, are actually fallen angels. And fallen angels have more power than people think. They're more creative in their deception than people think. Fallen angels like to pretend to be aliens. They'd rather you think something different other than what the truth is. And then you have the Nephilim, who the Bible says were the children of the fallen angels, and they too still exist, and they too have been mistaken as aliens. And so what we have, like in the time of Enoch, when the book of Enoch was talking about it, it very much confirmed that there was a time when these beings lived on Earth, and they came from a dimensional world, and they actually came, you know, through portals, basically. Enoch saw them coming from another world, literally another world beyond our world, and that has nothing to do with the solar system or the galaxy, or how we would know the universe. This universe of theirs is behind our universe, and they can open up doors, spiritual doors, basically, portals, that have spiral shapes, and they resemble 666 shapes, and they basically come through the portals. And when they do, they tell people they're aliens, or they tell people they're gods, or they tell people that they came from Jupiter or from Mars, and they tell people they're going to solve all their problems. And then when people deal with them, and this is our rulers, by the way, our rulers make deals with them, and even if it involves hurting us, they'll make those deals with them.
The globalists don't believe in Satanism. They believe they're contacting interdimensional aliens through the drug use and through the electronic interface, and they believe, and actually write about, Ray Kurzweil, all of them, that they're going to merge with the machines, blast off into hyperdimensional space. And that's why they're so crazy. That's why they want to get rid of us. That's why they're smiling and giddy and acting so nuts, because they believe, if you're a psychiatrist and are hearing this, understand, whether it's real or not, they believe they are in contact with these entities and are being directed by them. That's why they're so evil. And the entities are telling them eternal life, total power, total control, everything you could ever want. Just kill everyone. Set up a world government. Build this design we're telling you. Build what we're telling you. Build this. Build this. Let us through. Build the Hadron Collider. Open the dimensions. Let us in. We're going to really help you. We're friendly little guys.
They'll think for 1 minute they come from a planet, next thing you know, well, you know, we didn't come from that planet, we came from another planet, and oh, we didn't come from that planet, oh yeah, we did come from a dimension, but, you know what I mean? And so they lie. You know, they've been lying for like centuries. So the thing is, when you look into them, when you really, you know, get some guts and decide to, you know, investigate them and, you know, find out where do they come from, by simply, you know, doing the things that investigative science taught us, which is to investigate, you know, origin, investigate matter, investigate movement, investigate all these things that would make a person or defy what a person is. You know, how you can tell something is a dog and what a dog does and where a dog goes and what a dog eats and what a dog does in terms of, you know, its lifestyle. And so when you do that with so-called alien study, guess what you find out? You find out they don't come from another planet. You find out that they don't move galactically. You find out that they move interdimensionally. They move through parallel portals. When we talk about like Enoch, when we talk about what makes Enoch so important, why, what's the big deal about Enoch, why is everybody going toward the book of Enoch? There's two reasons why. What happened in Enoch's time is happening now in our time. And that's scary, because what happened in his time was pretty messed up. Okay, so what we had that occurred in Enoch's time was that there were rulers that were on that earth, powerful rulers who were worshiping evil spirits. These evil spirits told these rulers that they came from another planet and that they were going to solve their problems for them, and that there was more God than just the one true God. And so they believed in that for like hundreds of years for a while, and these were like descendants of even Seth. And what happened is that over time, while these rulers were worshiping and not taking warning from the other sons of God, those entities backstabbed them. And what happened is that the more and more the rulers worshipped them, and the more they got control over what they did, it allowed those entities to enter further and further into our world, to the point where they received enough energy and enough permission from these rulers to literally enter our stratosphere. And when they entered our stratosphere, they came in full invasion force. The book of Revelation tells us that's going to happen again. We are living in the stage where the beginning of that is already happening.
So what we put this picture is Hitler basically meeting up with the fallen entities, and that was basically irregular for him. He had a very large interest in basically following them and basically communicating with them and basically talking to them. And these beings were, very much part of the plan and the destruction of World War II. You'd be amazed at the fact there's a lot of attacks in World War II that they actually took part in, that history tries to cover up or tries to bury. I mean, if you look back at maybe 15 years from 9/11, so many people will have a different view and a different explanation to that. But when it all comes down to it, the Bible tells us that fallen entities are involved, and our leaders shake hands with them and greet them, and are happy to see them. Hitler is also very much involved with the 13 council members, and so he's very much a guy who reports to them. And this is one picture that you're looking at right here. This photograph was actually snapped, I believe, during an attack at Antarctica, if kid you not. Hitler didn't die in 1945. He actually died later on after World War II, because he was hidden in that base for a while. This was a photograph that was shot of one of the UFOs, if you will, one of the Virginia aircraft planes that attacked an aircraft carrier. Right before it decided to unleash a hail of missiles on it, one of the soldiers snapped a picture of it. And these are the things that you got to really wrap your mind around, because when you don't wrap your head around it, you're going to get very caught up in it. This is also the same deal. What you're looking at the bottom with the heat source is very much the fuel injection of the plane, or the Virginia. This is also another photo shot of the Virginia. And what you're looking at right here is kind of what I'm talking about here, is some of the engineering components of some of these Virginias. They have a circular fusion type of power, and it's right at the center of the Virginia. And basically fusion, that's basically using type of nuclear fusion with water, and basically sends it into a lot of hyperactive speeds. And it's just very, very advanced, and it's just